It's Spoilerin time, 2021 style. Welcome to the show that builds on our other show, Cordkillers, where we figure out how all this stuff works in the streaming TV world and then watch stuff and talk about it. This week, we're going to talk about Hannibal, Season 1, Episode 7, The Stand, Season 1, Episodes 2 through 4, and the movie Wonder Woman 1984. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, but of course, this is too Herculean or Diana, whatever. We need help. So we got Bill Meeks to join us.
And I'm a DC fan because I'm wearing a Batman shirt right now, so you know.
Busted.
Didn't have a Wonder Woman shirt, huh?
No, I don't. I have a Wonder Woman coffee cup, but that's about it.
Yeah, couldn't be.
I see. Good enough to get you coffee, not good enough to, all right.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm not trying to gatekeep you, but,
That's not what I was saying.
All right, let's talk about Wonder Woman 1984, a movie that I didn't like very much. Brian, what did you think?
Oh my God, was I glad I went to the movie theater. Look, my wife and I, we had COVID. If you've not heard the news, it's a disease. And once you have it, you according to the CDC, you get a little bit of time to leave the house. We left the house. And I'm so glad we did, because I cannot imagine us making it all the way through this movie if we were watching it at home. It's only because we paid $8 a piece for the matinee and spent $40 on a single hamburger that we split between the two of us.
Couldn't that work the other way of like, gosh, I wish I had seen this at home so I could have stopped, but I was captive, so I couldn't?
No, and actually, not for nothing. There's something there to that, because like, if I was at home and my kids knew at any moment they could get up and leave, I would have felt some need to try to keep them there. But as a result, I didn't have to give a rat's buttocks about any of that. Like, I just sat and enjoyed. And when the movie was bad, I just did the thing that Bonnie and I, like, we try very hard to never talk during the movie, but we've gotten very good at the very slow, significant glance at each other. There were so many of those moments in there. I had a great, there was a third of the way in, there was anxiety about whether I was about to be made miserable. And then around the halfway mark, I realized, this is just a double-sized, too long, fatty edit of a Doctor Who episode. And once I realized that, I was all in. Pedro Pascal, freaking great. It was amazing. A scathing 20-year-old indictment of early 80s greed? Sure, why not? Not clear whether or not this guy's doing a Ronald Reagan impression? I'm in. Well, let's go. Sure, throw armor in there for literally no reason whatsoever. Just so you could show up just long enough to get your butt handed to you and then decide you didn't need it to begin with. Yeah, let's take all an entire character who shows up to be a fish out of water and provides literally no benefit to the story whatsoever. In all of it.
Bill, did you agree?
I did not like it very much, and that's a shame because actually, the first Wonder Woman movie, I've never been really kind on the character. I've always viewed her as more of like an anti-hero because, where Batman and Superman, they're defensively or reactively violent. Wonder Woman seems to, in the Amazons in general, seem to just like dive all in. I thought the first movie did a really good job sort of dialing that back and showing, where the peaceful side and where the warful side was for this one. It didn't hang together for me at all. It's like they had like 6 or 7 interesting ideas and they mashed them all together and they didn't try to make sure they played well with each other, particularly Maxwell Lord, because I know the character from the comic books. And yeah, he's kind of, a capitalist villain that was very popular in the 80s. But by the same token, I don't think they really, I think they made him more malicious than he is in the comic books when that villain side comes out. And I also think it was one of my favorite things about the character. He financed the Justice League. And they worked with him for years and didn't know that he was evil. And then they found out one day he was evil. And it was like this huge reveal and this really impactful thing. And the character left me pretty cold overall.
I think based on what you both are saying, this may be my favorite movie that I didn't like very much because it had moments where I was like, oh, this part's really good. I really like some of the performances. Chris Pine, pretty good. Gal Gadot, great. Kristen Wiig, amazing. Story, I think the first third I was pretty good with it. I actually thought, and I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, that Chris Pine coming back because of the artifact that sort of, granted you the wish. I thought that was a great way to bring him back, because then you have a real reason why he's there. It's not time travel. It's a different thing, but he is not going to remember anything beyond 1917 or whenever it was that he died. There's a reason why he can't stick around. I thought that part was a good piece. I don't know that they did the best that they could with it, but Kristen Wiig's character was such a waste. I thought she was amazing. I thought, oh, this is going to build perfectly. She's going to be, that character who wants to be so much like Diana, that she just can't take it anymore. And they sort of turned her on a dime. Where I broke with the character was at the moment where she ran into the homeless guy and was kind of brusque with him. I'm like, here it starts, right? It's a believable progression of like, I'm successful now. I don't have to be nice to you, right? And we've all seen that that's a real thing that happens. Now take me on the ride of how she becomes evil. And the next scene, she's in a leopard suit and she's evil. And I'm like, but I missed and so, yeah, at the end, I looked at Eileen and I was like, I don't think I like that very much. And she's like, yeah, me either. But we didn't hate it. It had too many little weak spots. And Brian, maybe if I'd been in a movie theater, I wouldn't have cared. Maybe I'd have been like, yeah, but the special effects were so much fun. Like, that could make a difference.
Oh no, it's legit an awful movie. It's so bad that the only thing worse I could think of is Captain Marvel. And in fact, it's like it took notes on how to be bad and decided to steal the crib notes. Like, oh, the class is how to be bad. Oh, our first movie was quite good.
But I liked Captain Marvel.
Oh,
and
Captain
I did
Marvel.
not like Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, Captain Marvel. The entire movie was about like, is she powerful? Obviously, she's breaking.
Well, yeah, we don't need to relitigate that.
Whatever. I didn't care for Captain Marvel. I like this much more than Captain Marvel.
One of the things that kind of got under my craw about it was the two new powers Wonder Woman gets in this, the power of flight and the power to turn things invisible. They had a really great opportunity in that first scene on Paradise Island or Themyscira, where they're going through the battle and everything. Because, little Wonder Woman jumps off that cliff. She could have caught a wind current there for a second, kind of set up the flying. They could have shown her, when she's trying to get back in the race, turning something invisible to give herself an advantage. I just think both of those moments would have hit a lot more true if they had done some sort of setup.
They were set up at all. If they were set up at all at any point earlier in the movie, you're exactly right, Bill.
Listen, Bryce, Bill, so glad we brought you on as outside consultants. I think your ideas are dynamite. I love them. Tom loves them. Everyone on the panel loves them, and we're 100% going to implement them. However, just blue sky in here. It's a few minutes in between that beginning and the moment she turns the plane invisible, isn't there?
There's a probably good 60, 80 minutes between those two moments.
Just going to blue sky this. What
are you thinking, Brian?
Seconds before she turns the plane invisible, she says, by the way, I could turn things invisible.
No, I'm trying, and I could only do a coffee cup.
I'm sorry, Tom and I are talking
right now. Brian, I love that. And I think to preserve the mystery, let's never show her even try to turn a coffee cup.
On top of that, just crazy. Once it goes invisible, who needs the jet? Let's never mention it again. We did it.
No, we're done with it. Let's not just keep beating people over the head with it.
Invisible jet.
That'd be a waste. Yeah.
It's also not how you beat radar. Radar is not about visible.
I just realized,
it is also invisible to radar.
Adoy. I mean, besides those, which I think are very valid criticism, my big hate away from this movie is that The first hour of this movie, nothing happens, and the first 2 hours of this movie, Diana does nothing to affect the plot or the conflict of the story.
Oh my God, she is like she's a weird appendage that's stapled onto this Doctor Who episode, and I don't understand why.
She gets
It's
so close to the villain so many times, and he is undeterred by her presence. And Kristen Wiig's character, I mean, they fight. I guess they kind of have at it with, but like Diana could be not be in the first 2 hours of this movie, and you could still have the same ending. You could still get up to the point where he's doing the big broadcast. Like
also,
I will take issue with you do for Chris Pine to be in the movie. You do need to have her in and show that, and I think that's what they intended. And whether it worked for you or not, a whole different matter.
And
but
also,
it was her journey is real, finding the artifact, witching for Steve, having him come back and dealing with that. That was her storyline. I was actually all right with that. That didn't bother me.
I think that is a fine plot on paper, but I also don't think they execute that plot very well. I don't know that we see her like being substantively weaker. Like, I'm not saying we need a scene of her lying on the floor, withered away. Going,
I don't think you need to see her weak. It's just she's distracted. She's distracted because she's got this whole thing with Steve. It's like your friend who's dating somebody new, and you stop seeing him all of a sudden.
Hey, one thing that kind of got me with it too was like the climax, because like generally in a superhero movie, when the superhero saves the day, they aren't curled up in a corner giving some sort of word salad speech about truth, and that fixes everything. And it just because I went back and rewatched it today, and that
I'm sorry,
final
Bill.
speech she gives.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce you to a little show called Doctor Who, where that's exactly how half of the episodes end. You say crazy word salad about belief and truth and science and humanity, and
timey-wimey.
And then they go away. Yeah. The Daleks go away.
The Doctor Who comparison makes even more sense now, Brian. Definitely.
Yeah, I honestly, people in our chat room are like, "Well, why did the plane in the museum have fuel?" And you can, if you want,
incredibly good question.
This is the phenomenon of like, once you don't like a movie, you start noticing all that stuff and start picking away at it. My principle tends to be, and it's not something I try to do, is that if there could be a reasonable explanation, I will let it go. Right? Maybe that plane just got fueled up and they were lucky. And yeah, they could have told us that, but would that have made the story better? It doesn't really, that stuff doesn't matter. It only feels like it makes it worse when you're already not liking other things. And I think if everything else in the movie had been great, that wouldn't have mattered.
And by the way, we've talked about this before, but Men in Black to me is the seminal example of this. Like, there are a bazillion D plot holes in Men in Black.
Men in Black
never
rules,
noticed any of them. Yeah. Correct. Because you're too busy having a great time.
It's like, if other things about it are good enough, you forgive all that other stuff, right? That wasn't the case.
Also, she landed on a toddler. Did y'all see that? She was going 60 miles an hour, used a toddler
and then didn't get out of the road. It didn't get out of the road even.
Yeah.
Also, how did she become the cheetah? Like, that's a big one, right? Like, they just left it out.
What happens when you get lots of great power? Do you have responsibility or no? Did they ever establish that?
When you do a fashion montage, someone needs to be the funny one and someone needs to be the straight man, and neither of them really connect to civilization in 1984.
Actually, holy cow, you're exactly right.
And where was the 1984 music? That's all I want to know.
Oh my gosh, that was weird. And in fact, there's part of me that one of the things I threw out there was the idea, I actually would not mind 1980s as an excuse for over-the-top fashion and colors and visual pastiche without any of the cheesy remember this song, remember that song or whatever. Like, I could see all of the DC movies going forward living in 1984 and just never make a big thing about it. The way the first few episodes of Mad Men, it was like, wah, wah, wink, we're in, misogyny, cigarettes. It's the 1960s. But very quickly you lost yourself in that world. I would love that for DC, an over-the-top, outsized, comic book, bright-colored superhero world that just happens to be in the 80s, but not making a thing out of it.
I actually kind of like that they didn't beat us over the head with 80s music, though. It's kind of done.
I've always said there's a lot of comic book characters that would work better as a period piece. Like Fantastic Four is a good example.
Oh, yeah.
I still would love to see a Superman movie set in the 30s. There's this book called It's Superman by Tom DeHaven. I think would make a great 30s era origin story.
I love that idea.
But
yeah. I agree. Any other thoughts on Wonder Woman 1984?
Man, only thing left to do is to pat ourselves on the back for a timely response to this new movie that came out. You're welcome, world.
This movie is only like 2 weeks old.
It feels like a lifetime to me, buddy.
That is Wonder Woman 1984. And that is all we have watched that Bill Meeks has watched. So we sadly have to say goodbye. Thank you, Bill Meeks, for hanging out with us.
Thanks.
I thank you for being sad that I'm leaving, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
No,
I don't know
always
if
a great
I
time.
can continue, but yeah. If folks want to find out what you're up to, what should they do?
Go ahead over to thefakest.com. You'll see it up there on your screen. We're going to be starting season 3 very soon. It's a sketch comedy podcast. And you can always follow me on most of the social networks at Bill Meeks.
Thank you, Bill Meeks. Take care, my friend. Good seeing you. Happy New Year.
Bye. You too.
All right, so let's talk about The Stand, episodes 2 through 4. So while we were off on holiday, the CBS All Access just kept pumping out episodes of The Stand, and we have talked about episode 1. If you missed that, go to Spoiler in Time from early December. We talked about episode 1, The End. Now we're going to talk about Pocket Savior, Blank Page, The House of the Dead, which brings us current. And also brings most of the characters through their origin stories and into either Colorado or Las Vegas.
So, Bryce, if you don't mind, you're the only one who hasn't read the books.
Right.
Would you give us your impression first?
Sure. I think one of the I am glad that we have decided to just catch up with The Stand instead of do a week over week. I think we talked about this before the show started a little bit, because this is revealing itself to be an ensemble story and not a story about Harold, which I kind of thought it would be from the first episode. And I'm glad we could just kind of power through a lot of these backstories and, 2 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 months ago over here. It's a lot of like back and forth where I almost kind of wish it was just given it to us linearly, because I don't think that a lot of these flashbacks are very important. Like the one where Harold and the girl go when they're stopped by the truck driver and John Marsden saves them. I feel like that was not materially helpful in the point that they tell it, or versus if they had told it, in episode 2 or in some linear fashion. That is a frustrating part for me.
That had the teeth yanked out of it by virtue of the fact that everybody makes it safely to Boulder, and so you didn't really feel any threat from that scene. Or
there was nothing. There was nothing new told to me about that scene. If that scene was
what that scene accomplishes is, hey, they're going to act like they know each other, and that's because they know each other. Here's why they know each other.
But they already had them encounter each other before that scene.
Right.
So this is, and in fact, through Bryce's eyes, I can understand, because we had Stu meet Harold and Franny, and then Stu gets anyway, see a jerk.
Oh,
and
you're
this
talking about the
becomes-
second scene. I'm
time.
sorry.
Right,
I was thinking of the first scene.
No,
You're
the first
talking about the one
that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. No, I think that's to show the battle of evil. Right. The only purpose for that scene I can think of is to show that Stu actually was the good guy and he helped save. And here's what Harold and Franny look like in a crisis. Here's what Stu looks like in a crisis. Here's what the professor looks like in a crisis. And so in the future events, when they happen, the history of how these folks interacted. And I think it actually has a little bit of importance that Harold does owe Stu. And so
he's
from Stu's
genuinely
point of
a
view,
coward.
That means like, hey man, I saved your life once. From Harold's point of view, it's like, here's another reason to hate you because I owe you for my life.
And I think that's valid, but I think that if that sequence was presented to me in linear time, I think the exact same
it works better. I
thing
agree.
would have happened. And that's the frustrating thing, is like, okay, now we're going back and forth and doing origin stories for everyone, which is, I guess, fine. But like kind of what you said, Brian, is like, you do lose a little bit of the teeth knowing that everybody does make it to Colorado. Meanwhile, I think there's a lot on board I can get with the settlement in Colorado. But the thing I'm having trouble with is like, do all of the people who live there believe the Mother A thing? They say it up when they're in the conference, but like, are they all followers? Maybe that's to be discovered in the story as it goes on. But I'm still not quite sure why they're telling the story in this way. I think the mystery is interesting. I think, good versus evil manifest as the Five and as Mother A and Flag. I think that's all interesting. But
what did you think? Let's maybe walk through some characters and see how they landed with you.
Sure.
How did you feel about Larry Underwood? It's significant. I understand that when you're telling a story to a broader audience, things that were written in 1970s maybe need to be rethought. Because man, oh man, are there a lot of middle-aged white men in the stand, and I know this because so many of them have become women and black. Larry Underwood was like was essentially who's the guy that did Fire and Rain?
James Taylor.
Yeah, that's why I always thought of.
I thought he was a fine character. I thought his story of getting out of New York was interesting, right? That really felt like, oh yeah, we're kind of telling a horror-like story, and so you get some of the psychological stuff, being thrust into a very surreal world, going through the sewers and dealing with the vision of his mother, dying right in front of him. I thought that story was told rather well. I thought he ended up being an interesting character, and also kind of like, he might be the most famous person on the planet, just given, the death rate that they keep mentioning.
Yeah, sure. And likewise, where was that? I think somebody called Nadine the hottest girl on the planet. Where are you at with Nadine?
Nadine. We still don't know a lot about her, right? She
came in with the kid who won't talk.
Right.
And we know that in her youth, she was contacted by an evil spirit that appears to be Flag.
Oh, right.
And now Flag is telling her to help Harold undermine. Yeah.
I think
kill Stu.
I think she's an interesting character, a vessel of Flag, kind of like Harold is, but a little more explicitly. I did think it was weird. I don't know how much autonomy it's supposed to seem like she has when at the end of the fourth episode here, the House of the Dead, when she just shoots the other patroller in a very not like that situation had not escalated to the point of shooting him.
I interpreted that to mean there was no way that they would adequately explain what they were up to there, and it was better to kill him and hide the evidence and go, I don't know, well, he must have disappeared, than to risk exposing any single part of the plan. And also that she is, unlike Harold, willing to take whatever action is necessary.
Also, if there was any question in your mind that what they're intending to do is blow up the city,
do something bad,
then let's make it clear with a single person. Right then, what about Nick Andros?
Nick Andros, a fascinating character. I think a very interesting. I think very kind of. How would I describe it? A pairing I had not seen much of with him and Tom
Cullen.
Right. I think that was that was half slapstick, half like infuriating. The initial scene with them where he can't read and he doesn't read social cues, and so he can't understand at all this deaf and not speaking man.
Tom Cullen, the idea of representing somebody with developmental difficulties and so on. My goodness, did they do a fantastic reinterpretation of the original idea? The idea of him launching into this very, clearly prepared speech that he's been through 8 billion times, and then and Nick Andros not being able to give his pantomime speech. I was really great. Charmed by that. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I
think Tom Cullen may be one of my favorites in this performance of The Stand.
Yeah,
that portrayal is amazing.
They're them putting Tom in the third spy role in the final episode, I think, is also going to make an interesting dynamic if we end up following his adventure into Las Vegas.
Two more. We got the Professor Glenn and his dog Kojak.
Did we see a dog? I don't remember seeing the dog.
Yeah, the golden retriever. In fact, that's how he meets Stu, is he implores Stu to not shoot his dog. Also, while you're at it, please don't shoot me.
Oh.
That's Greg Kinnear.
Oh my God, that's
Greg
Kinnear. How did I miss that?
Whoa.
Let me ask Tom.
Yeah.
So one of the best bits of casting in the 1993 version of this was Roy Walston, my favorite Martian, as the professor. You know, smooth talking, always has the perfect words at the tip. Like, it felt like the character was written for Roy Walston's performance of it. Very different interpretation with Greg Kinnear, this dope smoking hippie liberal. Hey man, society's just a construction, whatever. Oh, you know what? I typed in Roy Walston. It's Ray Walston. Yeah, there. Sorry about that. Very different. I didn't mind it by the end.
I'm not terribly married to the book. I'm not a strict constructionist, so I don't mind them taking liberties with it. And I really like the validity of the Glenn Bateman that we're seeing in this, because I feel like I've met that professor a couple of times in my life. And he's sort of hippie, but not really, because he's a professor and he wants to have a comfortable life. You know, he doesn't want to live on a commune or everything, my goodness. Yeah. But he's practical enough, as professors are, to understand how to get along in a bureaucracy, but also idealistic enough not to want to have become an investment banker, but instead become a professor. And I really like this. I really like this portrayal of Glenn.
Yeah, the Ray Walston version is a magical unicorn that I would like to fantasize exists, but I've definitely met the Greg Kinnear one.
That's a really good way of putting it. Like this is that's a great character. This is a character that is more realistic.
Yeah.
I maybe was on my phone during that meet sequence with between him and
the
James
meet
Marsden.
cute.
The meet sure. Yeah. But he felt like, okay, yeah, he's a guy and he seems well adjusted and he's going to be kind of a pragmatic person among the five. Yeah.
And he's using all his skills from every professorial, academic meeting that he's ever been in. And you see that really, really well done.
Which finally brings us to Mother Abigail, which I will reveal another difference from the book in a moment. But how did you feel about her as a character?
Well, it's not Whoopi Goldberg in the book.
Yeah, weird that they don't even call her that. Like, they call her by a different name.
Whoopi Goldberg is on a couch.
Them. She's not body or anything.
She never been in Sister Act in the book. I'm just saying.
I don't have a good read yet on Mother Abigail. I thought because everyone had seemed to were brought together by her dreams or dreaming of her and the whatever how home Colorado come get me thing. I always thought she was more of a metaphysical person, but by I think either episode 3 or episode 4 today, we see now that she's alive and she's living in the community. She seems mysterious and hard to read still. Where we're at here in Spoilerin time to me.
Yeah, in the book, if it matters, she lives on a farm in Nebraska, and there's an extra
cornfield.
Yeah, where everybody goes to the cornfield in Nebraska and gathers there, where she lives alone and has lived alone for decades or whatever. So to have her turn out to be in a retirement castle is a bit of a pivot, but again, it eliminates kind of excess baggage.
The change from the 70s to today also, maybe that makes...
Yeah, more people end up in like assisted living, retirement home type situations. It also just makes it simpler that you don't have to move everybody from Nebraska to Boulder.
Right.
I think the thing I'm waiting for with her is I'm waiting to see her Jesus miracle. Everyone kind of figured out they all have a dream of her and that is its own thing. But I'm waiting for one other big flash to be like, oh yes, powers and on the side of good. That's what I'm kind of holding my breath a little bit for, especially now that we've seen that at the end of episode 4 here, the Five kind of go against her wishes and begin this espionage campaign.
Tom, I'm going to kick everything over to you outside of say the biggest thing that really struck me is individually, I know for a fact every one of these is a fantastic actor. So when they rush through their dialogue like they're under the gun, somebody's going to shoot a hostage if they don't get it all blurted out as fast as they can, I have to blame the director, because there are so many moments that it's like, could you give us just maybe a breath, maybe just a take a little beat to soak in just how awful this situation is or how difficult this whatever is. Nobody has time. Everybody just blurts out the thing, goes on to the next thing.
Interesting. I love the pace. I like the pace.
I felt that the most with Mother Abigail, and like she's just blurted all out. Anyway,
yeah. She's not on screen very much, so
I'll have to keep an eye out for that. I had not noticed that, but it wasn't something I was looking for either.
What about you? How do you feel?
I'm pleasantly surprised. I did not expect this to be very good. I expected it to be something we had to watch, and I find myself kind of looking forward to watching the next one. It's like you say, great actors. I'm thrilled by this cast, and the guests. You know, the surprise people that have shown up along the way. It's not the greatest telling of The Stand, but you're right. It's better than the one in the 90s, and it's enjoyable. And the failings it has, I can forgive for the interesting take on the story so far. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I am surprised that from the outside that Bryce is not digging the flash forward stuff. To me,
are you
like,
digging that?
Well, I love it because if I was going to tell somebody The Stand, I would not do it the way the book is written. The book is written at 1,284 pages long and fully, 2 full novels happen before you get to Boulder or any of that stuff. And it's like that gift of like, stick with me. They're going to end up okay. There's going to be some kind of reforming of humanity. And then you wait 3 more episodes and then you say, by the way, yes, there is a bad version of Boulder, and it's Las Vegas. You figured that out. We kind of said that right at the very first episode. Yes, the Dark Man is like a weird inverse version of Mother Abigail. Yes, in fact, if you haven't figured out yet, we're going to send a guy in a Camaro with crucified arms to tell it to you out loud. Oh, by the way, that was something else I enjoyed, is they pinched from, in a world where all of Stephen King's book circle around the Dark Tower, I enjoyed the multiple nods. Yet there is a moment where you look down and you see that the carpet is from The Shining, and it's immediately followed by a scene that is not in The Stand, but is directly lifted from The Dark Half, where an author's pseudonym comes to life, and a bunch of ravens, all or crows, kill themselves trying to smash in through windows in the house and stuff. So that felt, kind of fun. Fun. as fun as a bunch of animals killing themselves could feel. But
so much fun.
But I don't know. Like I enjoy the hopping around, and it's the only thing I really want to ding it on is however the actors were coached feels very not believable. I wish, and the dreams, man, dreams are hard to really make feel dreamlike. And boy, it's unfortunate that we're watching Hannibal right next to this, because Hannibal does a great job of, we're in a scene, we're in a moment. Nope, this has to be a dream. And then you are lost in that wispy ether. And then all of a sudden you're back to reality. And they just don't land it on this, for my tastes.
But yeah, there's lots of nice little side notes and references peppered throughout this.
They don't feel overt. I mean, I recognize the Shining flooring because one of the Alamo draft houses here has that same carpet, so I'm very aware of it. Which made me think, like, so is that also supposed to? I guess there's a lot of ways you can just make it tied to there.
Spoilers for the Dark Tower. Spoilers for the Dark Tower. Some version of Randall Flagg appears to in various parts.
And the Shining floor is in the movie The Shining, which Stephen King doesn't even particularly like. So, I think that's just like, hey, this is cool. This is fun. I don't know if it is meant to mean anything more than that.
Right.
But I'm digging this. I think it's kind of campy. It's melodramatic, but also because it's like, it definitely is still a 44-minute runtime show, and I appreciate actually some of these have been a little longer.
Oh, nay, yeah, over an hour.
But I at least it feels like that pace.
Man,
like I like the speed of this. I really I would think it was way cornier if it was trying to play a lot of this too heavy.
So it is very on the nose that we have a dude who falls out of a Camaro, and they say, "What's with his arms?" And they say the words, "He's been crucified." Hard cut to Nick Andros, guy who ain't done nothing wrong and gets totally beat up, loses an eye or whatever. By the way, you're being spared the death at least one other time. You watch him get pummeled within an inch of his life. Like, all they do in that book is just keep on kicking Nick Andros' ass. Like, if there was any question what character he is the blameless Christ child of this story.
Yeah, I'm also interested to see, because it's very clearly a battle for heaven and hell kind of, end of days sort of battle that they're setting up here. But there's also a lot of supernatural elements that feel a little off book, let's say.
Off the good book.
And they even, I think they even, maybe in episode 3 or 4, they even like very directly call it a heaven and hell battle or something to that.
Yeah, no, that you're right. It's a battle between heaven and hell. It may not be the exact heaven and hell from the Bible or anything else you've read, but it's a battle between heaven and hell.
And that's what Glenn Bateman does, is somebody who's familiar with folklore and archetypes or whatever is just, in the book and in the show, he calls out like, yeah, sure, this is the simple way to reduce it. The light side, the dark side. It's the hero's journey. If I say it, then I get away with doing it, You
just rejected the call.
Yeah, exactly, right? Oh, who's this? The goddess?
So on that same line, because both of you are more familiar with the story than I am, how explicit does that line of parallelism go? Like, does Flagg end like, do we end up really learning a lot about Flagg as a character, or is he still kind of a shadowy entity within the Dark Tower stuff?
Let's put a pin in this,
okay,
and we'll both promise to tell you how the book represents things once we reach the end of this journey.
Once we know how the TV. Yeah,
gotcha.
That makes sense.
Because I think Randall Flagg seems like a very interesting character. We've seen him use a lot of cool demonic powers, but if he's also just like kind of a boogeyman within the whole of the Dark Tower, I wonder if they're really going to give us a lot of concrete stuff, or if he's going to be just a little more like a folklore and less of a bad guy who gets
Speaking
handled.
Of which, there is one more character that we met, Lloyd, the criminal. By the way, boy, that cell block that he gets put in.
Oh yeah,
same cell block from that I watched like the night before on Catch Me If You Can, and that I've seen in a billion other shows. Man, Hollywood.
Great set.
It looks like the one from Castle Rock.
It almost certainly is. And that whatever that one place is with the crazy elevator that shows up in.
Hey, you know what?
Shining.
Prisons all look the same, Brian. Just ask any prisoner.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish the Lloyd stuff, much like the Harold stuff, was like, he's like the B plot in episode 2, and then we kind of don't get much of him. And these are two really interesting characters with a deep connection to a very interesting antagonist, and just spending a lot of time talking about community management.
I wonder if the flashback construction is because so many people have read The Stand. because I can see everything you're talking about, Bryce, where it's like, gosh, but this is weird. I want to know more about this. And then I'm getting it out of order. Whereas Brian and I are sitting here going, yeah. We know all that. So this is a much more interesting way to maybe reveal things to us.
I don't think this will in any way be a spoiler. Okay. So I think I can get away with it. But in the introduction to Randall Flagg in the book, they do a fantastic job of explaining how the way he's dressed conveys that he would not be out of place at a Republican rally, but he also could step up and incite people to violence at a union rally. His skin is dark enough that he could, or light enough that he could talk at a KKK thing, but dark enough that he could, incite people to action. He exists pretty clearly as a sort of fading in and out, like and this is, again, first words in the book, like sometimes he doesn't exist and sometimes he exists.
How convenient for him.
Well, how convenient for a story about good and evil, right? And there are sometimes, and it mentions, like that moment you see him floating, the book says, he could tell that whatever his time was coming because he was able to float just a little bit at first and now a little bit more, and whatever it is, it's coming, to him.
Well, I want that. Give me some of that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, I think you just,
which is
I think
hard.
you just spoiled Bryce.
No,
not spoiled on a plot point, but like
you've
gave
lavished
him
me
something
with
from the book that he has been wanting from this TV show that the TV show might also still give him in a different way.
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm liking this thing. I'm liking this thing, and it's also just very weird to think that this is this lives on the same street as The Outsider, which feels like a prestige murder mystery with very little camp and melodrama.
Yeah, so all of that vague reference to an evil force that felt concrete and mysterious at the same time in The Outsider, just apply all of that. I mean, it's an extra step for you, the viewer, which is unfair, but apply all of that to Flagg, and The Stand, the book, does a really good job of that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that is The Stand. Episodes 2 through 4. Let's real quickly talk about Hannibal, season 1, episode 7, Sorbet. We got a man found in a bathtub with his kidney removed, but Graham determines that this was not the Chesapeake Ripper. As a matter of fact, it was somebody trying to save the man, and we go on a merry chase to figure that all out.
Hey, Tom.
Yes, Brian.
Bryce, is it just me? Or did pretty much nothing happen this episode?
No, we went on a merry chase to find the guy who wasn't the Chesapeake Ripper. Actually,
I think
no, there's a lot of background stuff. Well, there's a lot of background stuff with Hannibal. A lot of progression of Hannibal's character. Not a lot of events. You're right about that.
Well, and plus the best parts with Hannibal set up stuff that hasn't happened yet. Like we have that unfortunate goofball of a client that he's got that inappropriately says howdy and is noticing him during the opera, and then later talks about how, oh man, I sure would like to be Michael Jackson's assistant. Like if Michael Jackson needed an assistant, he's like, oh, will you do me a favor and sing for me? I want to sing a good song, but I just need somebody with strong hands and no moral compass. It's me, Michael Jackson. But that didn't go anywhere, and then we just got a boogeyman in an ambulance.
Because we didn't end with someone getting handcuffed and carted away like we have 5 of the last 7 episodes. But I think the big thing that we did see, which was very understated because all of the stuff with Hannibal's actions in his killings is really understated, is like it seems like he's gone and killed a lot of people very quickly, and also very much out of his pattern. He is so close to the police, to the FBI forces here, that he knows, he probably knows that he really should lay low and continue to.
Oh, really? See, I didn't get that at all. I thought this was like, I've got the perfect cover right now because everybody's confused. They think everything's the Chesapeake Ripper. So I can put on one of my famous dinner parties now without risk of being caught.
I guess those are the two sides of the same coin here, Tom.
That's
because
true. I see.
because
Yeah.
like you're right. That is what he does, and what he should have done is none of that. Because I think I think this is where he's tripping up, or he's starting to trip up, which is like, oh well. We've been distracted with this organ transplant idea for a long time. Hey, whose idea was that? Like I almost wonder.
I'm not convinced that anybody's going to notice yet. It's way too early. Yeah.
You know what I did notice is Gillian Anderson, enough that I had to press pause, go all the way over to IMDb, look up this episode, find her name, and have it spoiled for me that she's in a bunch more episodes coming up. But
why did you have to look her up? You didn't know that was her?
Well, I wasn't sure, Tom, if I had X-ray vision.
Because the thing that tipped me off was in the credits when it said Gillian Anderson. I was like, oh, look, Gillian Anderson will be in this episode. And then when she appeared, I was like, there she is.
I see. Okay. Me and Tom Cullen will be over on the road.
Yeah, you wish you were as cool as Tom Cullen.
That's true.
See our episode of The Stand if you don't get that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot more to say. There was a lot of character groundwork. That was what I got out of this for Hannibal. Like, he sees Gillian Anderson, and that's when I thought it was interesting that he didn't look in charge for the first time when he was with her.
Oh yeah, he was off.
And yeah, he was on the other side. He was no longer in charge of the situation, and that's the only time we've ever seen him look like that. We saw a little bit of his past about being a throwing great dinner parties, and then he throws one again. Yeah, I thought it was a decent episode, to be honest.
It was fine, but when it was over, and keep in mind, I just was complaining on The Stand that there wasn't as much place setting as I would like. This show gets the pacing that I like a lot. It's got that dreamlike quality to it. So I don't mind that not a lot happened, but I definitely, like, the hour ended and I said, so what happened? Huh. And then realized that it was all just place setting.
Well, and this episode is called Sorbet, which in like meal coursing would be kind of a reset after like a big substantial meal, which I think we got a lot of last week. And so at this point, I mean, it seems to me like the biggest part of this episode is like, if you are not aware that we are trying to let you know that Dr. Hannibal Lecter is killing all these fools, here is him pulling up all of the recipe cards as they're talking about the organs, which was cool. It was like, that's a lot of like really kind of glamorous editing and directing between the crime kind of analysis and all of the cooking.
I think that's the part that was, it just played to the part I'm least interested in, is that you're right. There was a pretty awesome 3.5 minute glamour montage of like, see that heart? That's a human heart. See these lungs? Human lungs. See this sausage? Human intestine. And I'm like, yes, okay. And it's like, and they do an exquisite job of presentation, but that, again, that's the whole point of the show. This is the point when somebody who's a bigger fan than I am says, why are you watching Hannibal?
It's called Hannibal, dog.
Yes. Yeah, just that's the part that lands the softest for me.
I would, the only thing that I
like
was
a soft cheese.
The only thing I was wishing for in that dinner party was one of the FBI people to be at that party.
Wait, wasn't there wasn't his colleague who he disagreed with about Will there? The one that says Will can't
handle all this? I
don't
remember her at the dinner party, but I wouldn't swear she wasn't.
She was there while he was prepping a day or so beforehand.
Yeah,
she was there before.
I thought, maybe I confused her for the opera singer.
Maybe.
She gets that all the time.
Prominent
people ask her to sing,
at the head of the table.
But I'm pretty sure like the who was it? The fashion editor was there from the opera scene and all there. But I don't think any of the FBI, and maybe they would never be at a fancy party like that.
Or maybe he's smart enough not to invite them to this since he's serving the people he just recently killed.
Ooh, but also he's a playful one. That scamp.
Yeah, he's not that playful.
That old rascal.
He'll serve a human to Lawrence Fishburne under controlled circumstances, but that dinner party is too out there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You can't trust the sous chefs.
That is Hannibal, season 1, episode 7, Sorbet. Next time we will talk about fromage. And then after that, True Normand, which is really just sorbet again, but whatever. Okay, that's fine. That is it for Spoiler in Time. Thanks again to Bill Meeks for helping us talk about Wonder Woman 1984. We have now caught up with The Stand, and we will be doing the other, the next episode 5 of The Stand next week, along with WandaVision. So be sure to watch the first 2 episodes when they come out on Disney Plus on Friday. Until next time, we'll spoil you again soon.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.